Good evening. This is the Nevada Unified School District. It's August 3rd, and it is 6 o'clock. We're moving into open session. The first item of business is a Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in pledging to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're moving to item 6, announcements of reportable actions in closed session. Trustee Gaslin.
So for item 3B, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session, public employees discipline, dismissal, release is informational only.
That complete your report? Yes. Approval of the agenda. This is us deciding that we're going to follow the order of the agenda as printed, so I need an approval of the order of business from a trustee.
I'll move approval of tonight's agenda.
And second by trustee Jacobson. Did I see a second? All in favor of approving the order of business? So I see 6 trustees in favor, and trustee Mack is absent from this evening's proceedings. Do we know if he's going to be absent the whole evening?
Yes.
Yes, okay, he's out of town. Okay, thank you. The next item is item number 8, public comment on consent items. And I have a card from Richard Locke, who would like to speak to item 14F. So do we want to approve the rest of the item and reserve item 14F and hear that, or do we?
I would have them speak.
Okay. Mr. Locke, would you like to speak to the item 14F, which is approval of Nevada Unified School District new course outline? Sir, please. And we have a 3-minute time block.
Thank you.
So thank you, sir.
I saw the item on the agenda when it was printed, and it brought me back to the resolution that you produced in January of this year, which caused me a lot of consternation. And I wrote and sent emails seeking all the background information. I received some, but not nearly enough to show the factual background and record of the actions that you took. I'm not on item 14F. I'm all for learning. But I'm also concerned about all of the reference and other materials and how it's presented to students when you're talking about ethnic issues and whatnot. We've seen enough of that already. I went back and reviewed your resolution back in January, and some of the stuff in that resolution caused my blood to boil. I've been an attorney for 40 years. I've represented the federal government in a number of years, and I saw some of the buzzwords: systemic disparities and systemic and equity, acknowledge direct and indirect racist occurrence with no factual record that I could find that was furnished to me. And then at the end, I get down the bottom of that resolution, be further resolved to address symbols of institutional racism and white supremacy. Does anybody here know what that means to the people of Nevada? What you have said, that if you are white and you live in Nevada, you're a white supremacist. And that in itself is the most racist thing you could ever say in a written document. I could go through these documents and talk about it item by item, but I think you've got the point. I think you need to go back and revisit a lot of this stuff and basically get more community involvement and get a factual basis of what you're talking about. You know, if an FBI agent brought me this type of stuff and said, I want you to go prosecute these people, I'd send him back out, call his boss and said, you have not done your homework. And I tell you, if the people of Nevada, once this whole pandemic is over and they start looking at this type of stuff, I think you're going to find a lot of people that are very, very, very agitated. Because, you know, when you point your finger at somebody, there are 3 fingers pointing back at you. Just remember that. And I think it's important that you make sure that the curriculum, especially the resource and reading material, is appropriate. You know, kids are not born racist. They're taught it by somebody. And I think that that's the case. I always learned the golden rule: treat others as you would want them to treat you. And that's the way I think you should be teaching that. That will handle all of this stuff. And, you know, I went to a very good high school in Boston, one of the best in the country. I learned how to critically think. You must critically analyze what you're asking people to do and making sure that the law of unintended consequences don't come to the fore, that you create more problems than you solve.
Mr. Locke, we've
Thank
reached
you.
the 3-minute limit. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your comments. So are there any other speakers to speak to consent items? None? Okay, thank you very much. With that, I'll accept them. Does anybody want to pull any consent items?
Yeah, I'll pull five.
Five?
I'm sorry, the
Personnel action.
14, yeah.
Are you pulling the personnel action, Maria?
No.
Oh, you're pulling something else.
Which
yeah.
one are you pulling, Trustee Aguilar?
Actually, you know what? It's okay. Well, it's
Okay, good.
fine. That's-
Dr. Derby, did you want to pull one of the personnel?
Yeah, the personnel action, please.
You want to pull item B, personnel action? Is there any other items trustees want to pull so far? We have item B pulled. So with that, I need a motion for all the items on the consent agenda, not including item B. Do I have a motion to that end?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Moved by trustee Aguilar, second by trustee Nell. So with that, we'll move all the items on the consent item except item B. All in favor? So 6 trustees in favor, trustee Mack absent. Thank you very much. Okay, now, Jan, do
Yeah.
you want to take care of item B right now? Is that a convenient
Yeah,
time?
I would think that would be great. We have
Okay.
2 of the items on the personnel action that need to be removed, and we'll bring something back to you next time. The first one is item C, under resignation, Christine Roughton. And the other one, I don't have in front of me, is letter... It's 2A, and that's a job description issue, and that would be for John Mattern. That's just on the personnel action.
Okay, so is
You
it
have it
clear
in
to
front of you,
everybody? I don't
Diane.
have a, do you have it? Can you see?
What is it, Diane? No. Yeah, the back of the first
Oh,
page.
okay.
It's an issue of a job description, so if we could remove those 2 items.
Okay, so item 2A being removed, is that clear to everybody? Because my copy, it's not clear on me, copy.
And C.
And,
No, just 2. One is under C, resignation, and then the second one is the one that you have in front of you that I don't have in front of me right now. Yeah. And everything else is to move forward, and you can do a motion and a second on it now.
so does somebody want to make a motion to that end? Diane Gusson, with those 2 adjustments, second by
I'll second.
trustee Aguilar. All in favor of moving this corrected personnel action item, 5 and 6 in favor. Trustee Mack is absent from the meeting. Dr. Derby, thank you very much for that item. And that gets the consent item. We're now back to announcements of boards and superintendents. Questions, comments, and announcements. Right. Trustee Nell, do you want to have any comments to offer?
No comment this evening, thank you.
Trustee Aguilar?
No comments, thank you.
Trustee Jacobson? No. Trustee Butler? No. Trustee Gasson?
No, thank you.
Trustee Mack is absent, and I have no comments for
Actually,
this evening.
I have one,
Okay?
if I can. Just to thank all those people that have been participating in the farmers market, NUSD, representing NUSD, and so just, it's been fun.
Dr. Derby?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. The first thing I have is on your table. Ross had emailed this to me, and I hadn't seen it in a very long time. It is a great little article about how our district used to be 3 and then merged into 1. And we had used this for our strategic plan years ago, so I thought it was just something you might like to have. So thank you, Ross, for finding that for
You're
us.
welcome.
Today, we had a meeting with Mary Jane and Dr. Santora on the COVID, and we have a team put together. Leslie is the lead, and Tony Albini is the lead for the products that we need to make sure that we're COVID safe. But we talked about a few things. Leslie, I don't know if you want to come up just in case you have something to add to what I have. So I'm going to just give you a couple of highlights because it's making some changes, and we want to make sure that we're following everything as we are required to do. So the guidelines can be changing just like they were last year. So when something comes up in the community, then it might get changed. So that we want everyone to know that it's not just going to be, these are the guidelines and they don't get changed, and we will change as we go. We could be masking indoors and outdoors. Right now, it's just indoors. We believe that very shortly it will be outdoors too. Through data collection, we may have different guidelines for different schools. So if there's an outbreak at one school, they might have stricter guidelines than guidelines at another school. So it doesn't necessarily have to be consistent district-wide. We have to respond to the outbreaks. All right, here's one. Everyone vaccinated. And you can get at the farmer's market, there are 8,000 people in Novato that are not vaccinated. And they're still eligible to be vaccinated, and we want to encourage them to be vaccinated, and there are locations that they can go to. So that is a really good thing. Yes, we're still going fine. Okay. I have to ask the expert over here. We're going to have antigen testing that will be self-administered at the schools. It will be provided by the state. So if there are symptoms, there's going to be easy access to getting some testing, and that was a really important one. The state is, as I said, providing to all the schools. There are mitigating strategies that are, in order. So there might not be any strategies at some point. There could be just masks indoors. There could be masks indoors and outdoors. There could be masks indoors and outdoors, and then we have to have control groups on the playground. So we just don't know what. Right now, they're just saying indoors, but we think very soon it could be outdoors too. We would have parent permission for antigen testing, so that's an important thing. The health and safety practices that we've had have to be in place, so that's good. We do not have to have physical distancing as long as we've got masks on, so that's really important. We do not have to monitor the hand washing like we had to before, but we want them to hand wash frequently. All volunteers must be vaccinated. All volunteers must be vaccinated. Overnight field trips are discouraged. So we have one that was pending, that was coming to the board, and so we have to do a little more homework on that one. School dances are allowed, but only for vaccinated students. Students can mix during the school day, vaccinated or unvaccinated. We can be more restrictive than the guidelines. So if we want to do something stricter, we can direct that as a district. Everyone should get vaccinated. They said that about 500 times today. We will be verifying the status of vaccinated students and staff and reporting it and posting it on the website. The first posting has to be October 1st. So we have our work cut out for us. The students and staff will have to show their verification that they have been vaccinated. So that's a new one. Let's see, what else do we want to say? There's no recommendation for really separated vaccinated and unvaccinated students. Any professional development, everyone must wear their masks. Masks are required in high transmission times, and we are in a surge right now of transmission. 5 to 12-year-olds may be eligible for the vaccine as early as September. And they were talking about potentially having vaccines at the schools and different locations. What was that part for the young ones?
I think she was talking about how they were getting ready to have a big vaccine event in the event that it becomes
available.
They're going to do available, and I think at some point, yes, like we did vaccines, vaccinations, the mobile vax unit available at some of our schools.
Right.
Probably roll that out again too.
Something like that. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Leslie. There are 400 active cases right now. There are 10 hospitalizations, and they're seeing an upward surge. Tomorrow, we have a team that we put together. So Leslie put a team together of Jen and Mark Brewer and
Mark Brewer, we wanted to have representation from every school level, so we've got Amanda Langford from the elementary, Mike Casper from middle school, and Mark Brewer from the high school, Jen Larson, myself, and Jan.
Okay, that's good. And then August 17th, there's going to be a community forum, so for parents to listen to Dr. Willis and Dr. Santora, and it'll be just focused for parents in the community. And we will be meeting one time a month to get updates. So that's sort of that. So questions or concerns that you have?
We have a link to this August 17. Are we going to put it on our website?
Yeah, Leslie's in process of writing something.
Yeah, they are putting out that information now, and we'll be putting that out. We're going to be putting out a communication the next day or so with a lot of this information for our community, and we're going to be putting the link to testing, vaccination, and to this August 17th event.
Other questions from trustees?
Are we preparing to recruit more volunteers? Because I'm sure we'll lose some volunteers.
I imagine if there are parents that are interested in volunteering, that the schools will accept them on a limited, probably limited and as-needed basis. I did attend an event with a PTA board, and I think parents are really anxious to be engaged, and so I'm wondering, if there's going to be a lot of volunteers, because I think they're really, there's a hunger to be involved in this school again. They really want to participate.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're prepared, because if we're mandating people, volunteers to be vaccinated, I'm sure we'll lose some. So I want to make sure that we are prepared. Thanks.
No, I think we're good. Dr. Derby, thank you very much. You're welcome. So the next item on the agenda is item 11, non-agenda public comment. This is an opportunity. We have three speakers, and this is an opportunity to speak to an item not on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, we'll put your card underneath that item. But so for people speaking not on the agenda, I have three, and I'm just going to take them in the order that they got handed to me. So the first speaker will be Lawrence Wright, and the item is tennis courts. Is Lawrence here? Lawrence, how are you?
Fine,
You got 3 minutes.
thank you. I won't need three. And first of all, thank you all for your service. Appreciate it. Very simply, we would like the tennis courts to be unlocked at San Marin High School and Nevada High School. Typically, I've been a Nevada resident for 50 years, and I'm a tennis player. I'm a member of the Nevada Tennis Club. The courts were always unlocked. They were there for weekend play or after school, whatever. We've been good stewards with the different coaches and teams, whatever. Apparently, they got locked for COVID, and they never got unlocked. I had a conversation with Tony Avellini, very nice young man, and he explained his side of it and basically said, no, that's the new policy. They're locked. So the next avenue is the school board here. And Nevada only has 4 tennis courts at Pioneer Park, and they're really impacted. And it was kind of nice to have an overflow at San Marin High School. You could go up there on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon with your grandkids or whatever, not occupy a court at Pioneer, which is more serious tennis. But now they're locked. So basically, there's 6 courts at Nevada High School, brand new courts, and there's 5 courts at San Marin High School that the public is locked out of. So I would just ask you to unlock them so we can utilize them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is, my eyes aren't good, Jamie Perra. I apologize if I
know you, Ross.
I noticed you across the room, but
I know.
between the mask and the steam.
Yeah, I have a medical exemption, so if you're wondering why. Yeah, I'm happy to be here and see Jan on board. And I think I know Derek, but definitely Ross and I from San Marin. Anyway, I wrote a quick talk because I didn't know this was happening, and I have been in conversation with the Public Health Department and the Board of Supervisors about my concerns. One, about the state of emergency order that we're still in. So I really, there's a number of us who are questioning why we're in a state of emergency. So we've had 186 deaths in Marin from COVID. Most of those I wasn't able to get. I know it's over 75% were in care facility patients. And we have had no deaths of people under the age of 34, and actually it's probably even an older age. I'm trying to get that number from Dr. Willis because they put it into age categories. So nobody below age 34 has died in Marin of COVID. Also, young people have I'm a holistic health practitioner and have been serving the community for many years. And I started 2 charter schools in Marin, one being Novato Charter School that's still thriving. I'm very proud of it. Thank you. Yeah. So I've helped in a lot of ways. And I was on that school board for 5 years and spent a lot of time in here and working with Jan too. So let's see where I'm at. I skipped a little bit. So we have this state of emergency order. It's affecting all of us. It's definitely affecting our children in the schools. I asked Dr. Willis, as have others in the Board of Supervisors, our County Board of Supervisors, why are we holding on to this when things are looking good? I know you're aware of the Delta variant. It is the dominant variant right now. Yes, it spreads easily, but it is not as deadly. And we're seeing in places like Israel where they have full vaccination, they use one vaccine, they're a real good test case, 60% of their deaths are in the fully vaccinated people. So there's some pretty strong concerns, and I have concerns about the vaccines too, which you brought up. I'm seeing people dying from the vaccine, including one of them that worked here in the district, and one of our founding parents with Novato Charter School. Well, she didn't die from the vaccine, she died from COVID, but I believe there was some mistreatment. So I'm very concerned about what our health department is doing, and I don't want us, I'd like to see this board, I'd like to see all the boards, please, ask Dr. Willis tough questions. Why can't we get an answer to how old the youngest person was that died in Marin? That's a pretty significant number to find out, is this really affecting our children? He's not given us scientific, real science about proof about transmission with children. They have robust systems, and vaccinating them could really destroy that. It's very important to know that. Let's see, and I want to give a quote from Lisa Santora. It was in the IJ on August 2nd. Okay, she said, "What is concerning to us is we are seeing vaccinated persons at these facilities," she meant care facilities, infect other vaccinated persons. So we need to look at this. There's doctors like Dr. McCullough who is saying the vaccine isn't working now. So we need to look at other measures, and as a holistic practitioner, I know there are other measures we can be doing to help the whole community, not just mask up and wait for another vaccine that may fail, and so we can move on.
Yeah,
Okay.
can we move to the next? Thank you very much, Janine. Jeffrey Picherill, did I get it right, sir? Pickerill, thank you. And that'll be our last speaker for this open item.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a new arrival in Novato, just relocated here a short time ago. I too have been attending Board of Supervisors meetings, the Board of Ed meetings for the county, with my concerns. I come from a family of doctors, and my sister is practicing physician in Orange County. And since the beginning of this, I've wondered about a lot of the guidance. We never heard anything like masks and distancing and these kinds of ways of dealing with viruses, and there's always been preventative measures. None of that's been talked about. We've been doing only experimental things, including the vaccine. But the masks in particular are a real bother to me, especially when it comes to kids, because we know there's just no evidence that they do anything good, and there's a lot of evidence that they do a lot bad, especially for kids. For many hours a day, it's just not good. Some of those physiological effects that can come from wearing masks: hypoxemia, that happens in about 30 seconds, hypercapnia, shortness of breath, increased lactate concentration, decline in pH levels, acidosis, toxicity, inflammation, self-contamination, increase in stress hormones, increased muscle tension, and immunosuppression. So these are just a few of the things. And when we've confronted Dr. Willis, who has somehow been elevated to the level of dictator of Marin County, about why would someone who has a natural immunity be excluded? someone who's been exposed to the virus and recovered. Natural immunity, we know, is more durable and robust than any vaccine immunity. And his answer was that he made a claim that not even the manufacturers made, which is that the immunity from the vaccines is superior to natural immunity. Well, in very short order, that was shown to be a total fabrication. In 2 months' time, he was talking about how all these breakthrough cases are happening. Obviously, it's not superior, and obviously there's no immunity. So I asked the board to stand up to try to create we need debate. We can't be enacting these draconian policies that haven't done anything. In Iowa, they lifted the mask mandate for all kids because they were hurting so many kids with these masks. They were getting rashes, infections. They weren't thinking straight, and it's bad for them. It's not helping them, and it's not helping anybody else either because they're not the transmitters. So I just really ask you to stand up for the sake of the kids. You're in place to protect them. You know, I mean, I took ivermectin when I got exposed to COVID-19, and I was better in 2 days, and I am fine. So everybody should not take the vaccine because many people cannot. So to suggest that is just irresponsible. And certainly when it comes to kids, these are experimental shots. We don't know what they're going to do. We know that for boys between 12 and 18, it could be a death sentence. They could have heart problems for life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We are done with non-agenda public comment. We're going to move on to staff reports, item number 12, for those listening. And the first item is NOVA Virtual Independent Study. Dr. Derby, do you want to introduce this topic for us?
This has been kind of an exciting, fast and furious, but an exciting initiative because we are the only one in Marin County that have an independent study for K-12. TAM has the high school program, but each district is required to have a program now for this year. And Jen has been working feverishly trying to get everyone identified who would like to be part of the NOVA Independent Study Program. And simultaneously, we've been having lots of districts calling and saying, please let me in. So she's going to give you an update to where we are right now. And then it appears that we have other districts that are interested. I've heard from Shoreline, I've heard from Larkspur, I've heard from Ross Valley, San Rafael, and there's one other one. Reed? Shoreline, yeah, Shoreline. So Jen, why don't you give us a quick update?
Good evening, Superintendent Derby and trustees. Thank you so much. It is very exciting. This is the first time I've presented in person in a very long time. So it's nice to be at the podium. So I am here tonight to talk a little bit about what we have planned for the NOVA Virtual Independent Study. And so before we really dig into what it's going to look like, I want to give a little background on why we're doing this. So first and foremost, we are one of the only districts in Marin County who has a independent study program. We are the only that has a TK through 12 independent study program. As you well know, our independent study program has really been geared towards upper grade students in the past. While we have been open to serving elementary students, it has primarily served our 6th through 12th grade, but very much our high school students. As we move into next year, the law not only requires that all LEAs, all schools and districts have an independent study option for our students who are unable to return for health or medical reasons, but if you are a district that does not have one of those programs in place and is not able to do so, you need to have an agreement with another district or a county office who will. As you heard Superintendent Derby mention, that is the reason we do have quite an influx of students from outside of Nevada who are interested in joining our program for the next year. Besides the fact that we need to have one, we also have to remember that this is behind me and not in front of me. We already had planned to move in a more virtual learning academy profile or program. Again, independent study at NOVA has been a traditional independent study program. Students come once a week, they meet face-to-face, they get packets and options for digital work, and they do it independently at home and come back the following week. What this new legislation, AB 130, requires is that we now always have a virtual learning opportunity for students. As such, this is a time when, rather than have a VLA and an independent study, which is what we had anticipating, wanting to continue to offer this option for our students, these two programs are going to be forced to merge into one. And so we will be updating some of the practices at our current independent study. We will be integrating what we learned from our VLA last year, and we will be now offering a TK through 12 virtual independent study learning pathway that will meet the requirements of both what we would expect and the high level of academic rigor that we would want here in Novato, but also the legislation of AB 130. So with that, what will it look like? So we will be serving, as I said, TK through 12. It will be mainly for students long-term who are looking for a long-term independent study program. We've always offered independent study contracts for students who are looking for a smaller time or shorter duration, things like temporary leaves, travel, so forth. From here on out, if you're going to be out of school from 3 days to 15 days, you'll be on a short-term independent study contract with your home school. As soon as you are going to be gone or out of school for more than 16 days, you will have to transfer to Nova Independent Study and be a part of our long-term virtual or in-person independent study program. In addition, this 1 year, 21-22, we are going to be admitting any students who are not necessarily interested in a long-term, for multiple years, independent study learning program, but are here because they have health or medical reasons. As we move into registration, obviously priority is given to NUSD students. As of today, we've completed our registration timeline for NUSD internal students. We have 78 students who are currently identified that they're interested in enrolling in this program for the year. After we have those students placed, we're in the process of working on an MOU with districts outside of Novato, and we are currently gathering enrollment from outside districts. So the next time that we are together, I hopefully will be able to give you numbers for what our final enrollment will look like at our Nova Independent Learning Center. All right, so obviously, any student in this program is going to have access to technology. So we'll make sure that our students that are internal continue to have access to their Chromebooks and internet. Any students who are going to be transferring into our program from outside districts, they will need to be issued a Novato Chromebook and device so that we are able to monitor and push information out to them. But they are going to have internet through their home districts or their own personal Wi-Fi at their house. This is a mistypo, pardon me. This should say TK through 5th grade, we're missing a box, is going to have daily live instruction. It'll look very much like last year's VLA. We will have combo classes. We will serve students as they would in a normal traditional school day. So times will mirror the times of VLA last year, which is very similar to our on-campus. There will be one teacher assigned to a group of students, and they will be having live instruction with that teacher as planned. When we get into 6th through 8th grade, that's where they will have daily live interaction. And the definitions you have in front of you, the difference between live instruction and live interaction is live synchronous, the teacher is teaching, versus they have to have at least a check-in daily with their teacher. That is not to say we will not be doing live instruction daily. We will. It will not be with 6 rotating teachers the way that it looked last year, but our students in the middle school program will be meeting with their teachers daily, and they will be receiving instruction in all of their core subjects, independent study PE, and an elective of their choice. Finally, 9th through 12th grade will continue to mirror a high school independent study program. They are only required to have weekly check-ins with their teacher. We will continue to offer live synchronous math workshops, writing workshops, reading interventions, you name it, and science. One of the beauties of this transition year and moving forward is because some of the students are not there for health reasons, they do have the opportunity to come into school when it makes sense for them. So if they want to be in person for a science lab rather than watching it virtually, they will have that option. If they want to come in for math one-on-one help, they'll be able to have that option. How is this pathway different from last year's VLA? I think the biggest determining factor here that I've been talking with parents is when you transfer, you're transferring to a new school. Last year, we had all of our VLA students kind of housed in 2 locations all year long. They remained in their home school, meaning they were getting all the information and notes from their current school and principal. And they were enrolled in a virtual learning academy where we had another principal, another newsletter, another community. If you choose to move to independent study this year, you will be transferring from your home school to Nova. Once they're there, again, because of the nature of the program being long-term now, there will be a school community. There will be opportunities for socialization. There will be opportunities for both virtual and face-to-face field trips. But they will no longer be enrolled in their home schools. If students choose to move into our virtual independent study, they always have the option to move back out. There will be a re-engagement plan that is attached to all of their contract. We will have 5 days to replace them in a in-person classroom. That isn't necessarily going to be where they were to start with. So it'll be replaced as we have space available. Second, the pathway will be housed at the Hill Education Center. Again, not at their home school. Their home base will be the Hill Education Center. The high school program will not include the live daily interaction. It will be weekly, as our independent study program always has, the difference being that they have the option to do it virtually. And as I've already mentioned, they have the opportunity to come to any of the optional socialization or in-person activities and community building activities and events. All right. So who's our principal? Hill Education Center. It's Kessa Early. So her and her new assistant principal, Jen Marsh Russell, are fast and furiously becoming experts in all things virtual independent study. They found some great contacts out there in the world, and we have an amazing team over at Nova that is learning all they can as quickly as they can. We will obviously be adding new staff, so they will be gaining, hopefully, 3 to 5 new teachers to help with the new influx of students. But if any of our community or you would like more information, we do have a web page. It is currently called Virtual Learning Academy. As you notice in the presentation, we're really shifting away from that title of VLA because now it really truly will be our ongoing NOVA virtual independent study. Any enrollment questions, the number is here. That's our office. For now, we're keeping all registration centralized so that we have some consistent messaging as we move forward. And other than that, I'm here to answer any questions or give you any details that I can.
Thank you very much, Jen. Are there questions for Assistant Superintendent Larson? Trustee Aguilar.
Just wanted to thank you for all your efforts. And just to clear, most of this information you got out of talking to parents and seeing their needs and the needs of the students, correct? And so this is how, can you tell me more about how you?
So in a lot of ways, we were very fortunate. We have a lot of survey data. We have a lot of information from last year's experiences, both from parents, students, and staff, that really said we needed to do this. This was something that the community was a good fit for some of the members of our community. What we had originally built is very similar to what you're seeing here. It was an unexpected shift in the laws about 3 weeks ago to say that we had to do it in this certain way. So while there's been a couple of changes, what we had built last year very much mirrors what the state had decided to move towards. And so we were in a pretty good shape to be able to merge what our community wanted with what we were going to have to do.
Well, that just comes to show how you're on it, you know. And I wanted to just kind of, the survey that was passed out last year for parents, so a lot of that information you got from the parents and that survey, is that right?
We did surveys at the end of the year. We did a mid-year at the end of the year. We also did some thought exchange,
Right.
Where we gathered kind of what were the most high level and highly talked about aspects, both positive and negative. What are the things that worked and what needs to change?
Yeah, thank you. Just
Other questions? Trustee Butler.
We're lucky to have Nova already.
Yes.
To be where we are, because I can't imagine being another district trying to tackle this, to start from scratch, and it's strictly required for the 21-22 school year, for 1 year to do all this work. So
Yeah.
we're in a good place, even though there's a lot to put forward, and we have Kessa and Jen Russell that are going to be perfect for this. So I feel really good about this as a trustee, sitting here and offering this another opportunity for our students. Is there a maximum number of students that we have that Is there a max number of students that
So
we?
this year, not really,
Yeah.
because we do have to offer this. So we will be leaning heavily as needed on our one-time expanded learning and whatnot grants. Long-term, it will be dependent on staffing, just like we would be at any other school. But in terms of this year, staffing will be determined very much by enrollment. We're very fortunate right now that enrollment has not exceeded what we already have for the high school. So we're going to be good there. So really what we're looking at is our elementary and middle school numbers mostly.
There's quite a bit of mandates that are required as a district and what the parent has to help with. There's an agreement and conference and all this other things. Is our ARIES system capable of handling some of that? Is there change in what we have to offer or put on the ARIES system?
There's some changes we are going to have to make. It's less about that. It's more about how our teachers are able to accommodate an elementary attendance and grading system in the same school as a secondary. So that's what Cassandra and Alex are working on right now, but I feel confident and they feel confident that we'll be ready to go on those things. I think if you were to look in ARIES, technically you're going to see a NOVA elementary and a NOVA secondary, but everything will be in the same place. In terms of the contract and the conferences and the reentry plan, those are compliance with the families. So those will start in looking at the contract, making an agreement, and then having a meeting with the administration and the team over at NOVA if there's any questions, concerns, so on and so forth.
Thank you.
Questions, others? So this is a staff report. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Larson. We're excited. I understand there's about 100 students enrolled at this particular point.
Yep, so we started the year with 37 students already planning to do NOVA, and we have about 78 more as of today. So just over 100, and I'm expecting as inter-districts are starting to roll in, we will see that number go up quite a bit in the next week and a half.
You're seeing
School's
some growth.
starting.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I have a question for the board. We had the item non-agenda public comment up, and the agenda calls out until 6:20 was the time, and we had two members of the community walk in and want to speak to non-agenda public comment, and they walked in sometime after 6:20, but not very far after 6:20, and I would propose that we hear the two speakers. With the board's consent, we will go back and pick up the public comment, the non-agenda public comment from the two speakers.
Lisa's bringing it.
Thank you, Lisa. And there's a 3-minute time limit. Thank you very much. And Lisa Loring-Necker, I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I apologize.
I think my writing was bad. First of all,
my eyes are bad, so thank you.
it's
3 minutes.
Long-Necker. My son is a junior at Novato High School in the MSA program. At first, I want to thank you for your commitment to our kids. And the fact that you're here says a lot about your commitment.
I think we lost your mic. We're checking.
Yeah, why don't you come over here and use the podium? Let's try.
Yeah, let's keep going and let them deal with the technology, so.
Can we restart?
Yes.
I don't know if I have that much to say. But I'd like to speak to the elephant in the room, and that is masks. I think it's really important that we be open-minded to the science, because what I've seen in Marin County, theme of science, but no studies supporting putting masks on kids and having kids distancing. In fact, teenagers' suicides have far outnumbered COVID deaths in teens. And this is really concerning to me if we are growing our kids in fear when there isn't any basis for it. I'm sure by now you've heard that Fauci's emails have become a matter of public record, and that in part of that he suppressed the life-saving treatment of oxygen and promoted respirators, which killed people, and suppressed other treatments for COVID. So knowing this, I think we could change our tune on what constitutes an emergency now that we have that information, I think in the beginning, everyone really just wanted to do the right thing, and I'm sure you do now. I have no doubt that you have the best of intentions, but I think we're going down a path of terrible fear and really going the wrong direction by putting masks on kids. They actually do damage. They do a lot of damage, and there's a lot of science behind that. And there's also a large body of science that says there's no statistically significant studies that show that masks work. In fact, I've seen plenty of studies that say that masks help a little bit for bacteria, which forms larger clusters, but none whatsoever that say that it works for viruses. So I'd like to see us take masks off kids and have them have a really normal in-person social experience, no plexiglass, no anything like that, because it's really exasperating. I feel like, and I'm not accusing you all of this, but it feels like the amount of calling the name of science in vain that happens is boggling. And the problem is, if there isn't a scientific basis for our actions and it's just a belief system, what do we call that? It's called a religion. When we're doing something with religious fervor and we don't have any data behind it. So I'd like to ask Novato to be really forward-thinking and stop masking kids. There are other districts in the state that have adopted a no enforcement policy for masks, so you're still following your edict from CDPH and giving parents the choice of whether to mask their kids or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have one more speaker, Lori Dali. Did I pronounce? Thank you. And then that'll be the end of our public comment for open items. Yes,
Great.
Please proceed.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving us the time. We do know this is a little bit.
Sure, but thank you for coming down and talking.
Thank you. So I too am here to ask for mask choice for our children. And just like Lisa said, there are a number of us parents out there that have been very concerned about our children this past year. And there are over 200 studies now that actually speak to the harms that we're doing and not allowing children to see our mouth when we're speaking, don't know what our expression is underneath the mask. And especially younger children have been scared to go to school because people look so mean, when they don't smile and they're not able to see this. These are effects that are going to be long-lasting in our children. And so I've come here to just also remind us of which the soil that we stand, what this country truly stands for. And what we fought for and what we pride ourselves in is that of having sovereignty over our own bodies. And I think it's crucial that we teach our children, even at a young age, that they have say over their own body. And if something doesn't feel right on their face and they're not able to breathe, they should be able to speak up at least and maybe have somebody hear them and say, you know what, you do have a choice. It is your body. And so I've come here to kind of speak to that. That's our 14th Amendment. It's so incredibly important. It's what has not allowed communism and all of these other things come into our country because we believed in the individual's choice over that of the collective. And so I've come here to speak on that. Lisa also mentioned that the suicide rates are so high now in our children, and it's so concerning as a parent, especially when this disease was never truly our children's disease to carry. This wasn't a burden on them. They're not sick and dying from this, and yet we've made them feel as though they're responsible for the well-being of everybody around them, which is such an incredible burden to put on a small child, to think that their breathing or their being close to someone could affect somebody else's health. And I worry about our children. And so I've come primarily just to ask for this, as well as choice for our teachers also. I know that there's I'm not a teacher, but I know that there's some question over mandating things for our teachers. And I believe that it's so important that our teachers have a choice. And I want them to be able to come to work in a safe and healthy way
Thank
for
you
them.
for respecting the time limit, and thank you for coming and speaking to the board. We are now going to move on to item number 13, discussion action, and we're actually 5 minutes ahead of schedule. Amazing. So, Dr. Derby, the approval of revisions made to the general fund.
Yes, you have something on your table. It's in pink. And so a change was made. Lois made a change, and she'll speak to you to it now, and you'll want them to follow on this.
Please, that's what we're going to follow on.
Okay.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? This is weird with the mask. So this is our 45-day revise, and this comes to you because we adopted the budget here in Novato prior to the state adopting their budget. And we always have to look at what comes out in the state budget and are there any significant impacts to our budget. And I compared to last year when the change was several $1 million, this is really inconsequential, but there's still some interesting things here that I thought was important to discuss. So we really have 4 items, 2 of which have no impact on the bottom line. And those are 2 funding programs, grant programs that we have the opportunity to use. But I think as a district, we need to consider, is it going to be worth the effort and the time, as well as maybe extra money to do the programs? And one of those is what they're calling the Expanded Learning Opportunity Program, not to confuse it with the Expanding Learning Opportunity Grant that we got from earlier as COVID relief. This is money that is meant to, both of these pots that I'm going to talk about are meant to help our unduplicated count students. And the first one, this expanded learning opportunity, is meant to give them more instructional and or engagement time. And you are required to offer up to 9 hours to students a day. Now, it can be, you can be incorporating community programs that here in Nevada we already have in place, before and or after school programs. And the other big piece is you're required to have a 30-day summer school program, which also offers 9-hour days. And I believe the number is 50%, no, it can't be 50, some percentage, I think maybe 30% of your unduplicated students need to actually take part in the program. So there's a lot of parameters, and it's questionable whether that's worth it for us to do. So we need to explore that a bit and perhaps come back to you with ideas. It seems like a lot of money. That's the 1.152576 million, $1.1 million. But to do a whole program like that, it may not be enough. And it's, I think, for us, one time. For districts with 80% or more of unduplicated count, the money will go on in future years. It doesn't necessarily seem that will be that way for us. So it might be a lot of work for not sure what benefit. Yes, Julie?
Would you explain what unduplicated count
Of course.
means? Thank you.
Unduplicated students, that goes back to the local control funding formula, and it's what the students that are either free and reduced meals, English learners, and or foster students. And those students, in general, we earn more funding through our supplemental funding with the LCFF, local control funding formula. But it also has become very popular for all these different grants coming out of the state that they are directed towards those same populations. And the second grant, which is also directed towards those students, is the A through G completion grant improvement. A through G completion. And again, it's directed towards those students and trying to help them do more with their A to G completion at the high school level. And that amount is the $410,000.
And again, it's a net zero because you're expected to spend the money. You get the revenue, you spend the money, so it doesn't change our bottom line. But they are more of some of the more significant dollars offered in the state budget that Novato may want to look at and figure out, along with all the other buckets we have, are these something we want to take advantage of? The two that do make a difference to our bottom line is that, and I had talked to you about this possibility that we had reduced state unemployment rate, and that is saving us $405,000. So that's just straight to the bottom line. That's a help. And the other is, I know you've heard the term universal pre-K or TK coming down the pike, and we're going to have to do that in 22, 23. This year, they're giving us a planning grant. Well, the fact is, we will have to plan, but it will be on staff time pretty much. I don't think we're going to have to do any extra expenditures, so that money is a nice little, it's not much, it's a little over $100,000, but it's something. So in the end, our bottom line is improving, our fund balance is improving by about $500,000 based on the 45-day revise. So now I'm open for any questions on this item.
Trustees? Trustee Gasson?
I don't have a question. I think this is great. Thank you. I did want to mention, and I heard Assistant Superintendent Larson mention it as well, about the change in the independent study it's in the report that's attached to this section, of changing it from 5 to 3 consecutive days, being allowed to do that.
Which is
so I think that's
bonus.
super helpful, particularly given that, if you've got a student that needs to be out for several days, for testing, whatever. I liked that was reduced.
I do too.
So I thought I wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
Yes.
So this money can be carried over if we don't use it for the pre-K planning?
That is correct.
So that's whatever we use that we think
That
we
is
need,
correct.
but then we can carry it over so that it can be for implementation year?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Questions from other trustees? Trustee Nell?
The carryover question applies to the expenditures related to the A and G completion as well. Is that I guess what I'm looking for is a little more clarity on, I'm hearing we're going to get these funds, but we still have yet to evaluate what type of program or how we're going to.
I don't know that we'll get the funds unless we implement the program. Okay. We can, it's some of that money that you go ahead and spend it, and then they'll probably give you a little bit to start, some seed money, but then you need to actually put a plan in place and spend it.
Okay, so then essentially the change, we could in fact be taking the $410,000 out of our budget if we decide, if we don't come up with a plan to do something related?
No, because if we took the revenue out, we'd also take the expenditures out. So this document right here shows the revenue and expenditures for both of those grants that I described. So if it were just those, there'd be a net zero to the bottom line.
Okay, so if we do them, it doesn't cost us anything. If we don't do them, okay, got that. So at this point, then, are we adopting this with expectation that we will do something, or are we adopting this? Okay, so, and I guess we can decide later, and like you mentioned, there'll be some initial funding, the seed money or something along those lines, and decide later what we're going to do, because
I think staff will have to have some discussions and bring it back to you.
I haven't checked lately, but I'm pretty sure we don't have 80% unduplicated student body population, and so it might not. The funds could be put better use somewhere else, perhaps.
The item